Hello, everybody. Chris Lee at Southeastern 14. Baseball season is underway. I've got a new sidekick this year. Alfred Ezman's going to be joining us. Big baseball guy. We will not hold the Rays hat against him in the battle of dueling Southeastern Major League franchise. How can you dislike the Rays anyway? I mean, come on.
There's no way, right?
Right. I mean, they're in the AL East. They fight an uphill battle. I've got to respect you just for that alone. And
Absolutely.
we're going to tag team all the SEC games. Full disclosure, we did not watch them all. No, between the two of us, we watched a lot, but you can't keep tabs on 14 games at once. However, you can know the teams, know the personnel, and read box scores. And so we're going to do the best between all that we can. Before we get started this morning, a reminder, this show is brought to you by our friends at BetOnline, which continues to be your number one source for all your your basketball wagering needs, baseball too, I'm sure. Pro and college hoops throughout the year with up-to-the-minute odds, stats, trends. You can follow your favorite team's path to the playoffs with in-game live betting, contests, and all the best player props. Experience the world's best wagering platform anytime from your desktop or mobile devices. Head to BetOnline today. Become part of the team. Remember to use promo code BELIEVE for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, the game starts here. We're going to run down all 14 games, but I think the headliner, and I think the only game between ranked teams, and there's a lot of polls, I may have missed somebody somewhere, was Tennessee and Texas Tech. I know you kept an eye on that one last night. Tennessee's pitching was superb early. A.J. Russell making that transition from bullpen guy to starter. From what I heard, texting with people who were following that game was pretty electric. What was your takeaway? What were the big things from Tennessee's 6-2 win over Texas Tech last night, Alfred?
Yeah, going into it, I mean, the main thought I had was that Drew Beam was the opening day guy Tennessee would put out there, but they went with Russell instead. And no complaints, really, I would think, from Tennessee fans on that. He pitched a combined 17 strikeouts with A.J. Causey, the other pitcher who was out there last night, and he was the transfer they had coming in from Jacksonville State. And I mean, they gave up 2 runs, of course, to Texas Tech, but it seemed like that game was fully in Tennessee's hands the entire way, and Tech was just playing catch up. Batting wise, Billy Amick in his debut looked very good. He had a home run, went 2 for 4 with 4 RBIs. Or 2 RBIs, excuse me. But he was, again, just a threat for them on offense, kind of what you look to expect from him at third base this season. And then another guy that I kind of noticed throughout the game on the bases who looked good was Kavares Tears. He had 2 runs, and I think he even had a stolen base last night. And again, his threat on the base paths, I think, really threw the Red Raiders in a pickle, so to speak. So Tennessee ends up just kind of in cruise control in that 6-2 win. It's a very impressive start to their season too. As you said it, they were the only ranked. They were the only team that played another ranked team last night to open the year.
Yeah. All right, next one up. And by the way, we're going to have about a 30-minute show today, start to finish. I've got to run my son to a pitching lesson in 27 degrees, so we're going to see how that's going to go. But in any case, next one up, and I'm not going in any particular order, but I guess I'm prioritizing some of the higher-ranked teams first here, probably. Arkansas beats James Madison 6-4. Hudson White, Jared Sprague-Lott each hit a home run. Hagen Smith struggled, pitched 1 inning, 42 pitches, kind of uncharacteristic, 3 earned runs in that. The story for them, I think Will McIntyre is a very underrated part of their team. He's kind of a throwback. He's not a super hard thrower, but he's a guy who has given Arkansas bridge outings and starts throughout his career. He gave them 5 2/3 of one earned run ball last night, or yesterday afternoon, I guess it was. And then Gage Wood finished off for 2 1/3 scoreless as Arkansas wins that one 6-4 in its opener. James Madison, kind of an offensive team in years past. I don't know if that's ballpark or just lineup construction. But anyway, Arkansas starts off with the win. And most of the teams won in the SEC. I think only had a couple teams that lost. We'll get to some of those in a minute. LSU had a little bit of a closer battle, I think, than we imagined, beating VMI 11-8. Is I think some pitching struggles out of the gate. What did you spot of note in that one, Alfred?
Yeah, VMI kind of handed it to the champs straight up, and that game was close really through the 6th inning. I think the big key for LSU to kind of pull away there was Mac Bingham. He came in from Arizona as an outfield hitter. I believe he was all Pac-12 too. So he was like a pretty big name they got in the portal coming in. And he had a big 2-run double to kind of set the tone the rest of the way. And good luck, I would say. I remember watching LSU back in Omaha last year. Good luck trying to play catch up against them in the later innings of a game. And that's what VMI had to do. And it was just kind of tough for them from there. Gage Jump closed out that game and just shut the batters down. He had 2 strikeouts. And then I believe there was a ground out just to end the game straight up there. But the other guy of note that I'd like to mention too, Nate Ackenhausen. I'm sure we all remember him from the NCAA tournament and the show he would put on. He came in, he got the win with a huge game, 6 strikeouts in 3 innings. I mean, when you do that, you have 2 strikeouts an inning. That's pretty decent work from him as well. Just to, again, it's the first game for LSU. I'm not going to expect them to have 3-run within 5-run games with some of these smaller mid-majors, but it was it was a little daunting to see, but a lot of these teams, I think last night even had some scares like that in their games, but ended up, pulling away late. So LSU pitching down the stretch, big key in them getting the win, much like their national championship a year ago.
Yeah, you had some aces in this league that struggled last night. Vanderbilt notably. We'll get into them in a minute. But Thatcher Hurd giving up 4 earned in 2 2/3 was probably not what you wanted to see for your LSU. He was such a big part of what they did late after transferring from UCLA. Look, it's mid-February. Pitchers are still finding their rhythm and their footing, so I wouldn't hit the panic button yet. But that's a thing that you would have, if you're an LSU fan, you would have wanted to see a better outing from Thatcher Hurd.
Yeah, I would think so too. And again, LSU, I remember talking about them preseason. The strength of them has been just the depth they have pitching. What manager Jay Johnson went out and got was hitting to reinforce their lineup, and the guys they lost there, like a Dylan Cruz and whatnot. But I think pitching going forward will be something to watch. And again, Hurd struggled, but it's good that LSU sees the back of our bullpen really can still deliver like they did a year ago. So going forward, LSU pitching, name of the game for them, and what I'll watch to start the season at least.
Yeah, I think LSU's staff, was perceived to be loaded, and I don't really, after one game, back off that as a strong opinion. Now, speaking of which, the deepest pitching staff maybe in the league, or certainly in that top of the conversation, was Vanderbilt. I was at that one yesterday. That was a wild game. Vanderbilt led 6-0 after, I think, 4 innings, and gave up a lead and actually was down 11-9 heading into the 9th inning, wound up winning on a bloop single by Jonathan Vastine. Actually, it was a double that maybe could have been caught, but wasn't. And anyway, I think the story for Vanderbilt, we'll start with kind of the negative first. The pitching was not what I think people would have thought. They started Grayson Carter, and there was a weird thing right before the game where the umpires called him out for an illegal delivery in his warm-ups. And so they spent about 5 minutes letting him warm up again. He started pitching the game from the stretch. And he's a kid who throws 102 when it tops out, but he also has control struggles. And I think that put him off his game. He pitched in and out of jams all day, ended up walking 7. Ryan Ginther came in, gave up his runs. Carter Holton was lights out for 2 innings. They're trying to stretch him out after holding him out most of the fall and the spring. 3rd inning, it just fell apart on him. He gave up 5 runs. Just really nobody pitched well for Vanderbilt until J.D. Thompson gave them a scoreless inning. But I think the concern for Vanderbilt, everybody was saying the pitching is going to be lights out. It's the bats we're worried about. Well, they hit 3 home runs, had 15 hits. R.J. Austin went 4 for 5. And so it's not often you see Vanderbilt winning 12-11 on opening day. That's kind of a shock to the system if you followed SEC baseball for 20 years. If Vanderbilt usually is winning openers, 4-1 or 5-2 or something like that. So that was kind of a score that I think if you're watching across the country, you didn't expect an 12-11 final there, Alfred.
No, absolutely not. And I was shocked too watching the beginning of that game, and it was just, it, like you said, Carter was delivering heat, but once that ball gets outside of the zone, here come the base runners for FAU, and that's really where they kind of took off. And honestly, FAU just kind of capitalized on just big innings of consecutive hitting. I mean, they had a 4-run and 5-run inning at a certain point in each game. That's pretty much their entire offense from last night was from those big innings. So Vanderbilt again had to kind of not even make sure, kind of hope their bats were hot, and they were. I mean, they got 15 total hits, and they kind of just stuck in there, and it's good to see that they were able to pull this out. But again, going forward, just a little more control from the pitching staff, and like you said with LSU just now, day one of the season, it's not too big of a concern right now. It's just something to watch and monitor. But
Yeah.
the back half of that staff, it just goes to show what SEC baseball is all about. The back half of the pitching staff was able to keep the Commodores in it for what it was worth, and they ended up pulling away with a walk-off.
We're going to see a lot of back halves of staffs the next couple of days because you're not seeing a lot of 5-6 inning outings out of guys anywhere. So this is the get to know the names portion of the season early,
right?
Speaking of pitching troubles, Florida last night, Cade Fisher did not give the Gators the start they wanted. Florida fell behind 5-0 early. I don't know if you had a chance to watch any of that one. I did. They did get a home run from Colby Shelton, who was playing shortstop. Wouldn't have guessed that a year ago after he transferred from Alabama. The bullpen late just gave up some runners as St. John's kind of tacked it on. Kevin O'Sullivan got very impatient with the guys that couldn't throw strikes, as he tends to do. But, yeah, I think that St. John's is a team that I don't know what they're expected to be this year. Year in and out, pretty competitive, playing up there in the Northeast where college baseball is not a thing. But I would have thought Florida's pitching would have been better out of the gate than it was, because if you're talking about top staffs in the league, I think they're right up there with Vanderbilt and a few others. And so, opening weekend baseball, sometimes some crazy stuff happens, and I think that's what we saw in Gainesville last night.
Yeah, I mean, and really St. John's from the jump, this seemed to be, in their control. Right off the bat, they had 7 runs that were unanswered until the bottom of the third. And then Florida, was the team, instead of some of these mid-majors last night, that was having to play catch up, and St. John's just wasn't letting them have it, really. And you mentioned it before, we've seen O'Sullivan kind of take these pitchers out early, and I think a part of that might be due to, he just wants to see what he has in the first game against St. John's. Again, with this Florida team on paper, I'm not too concerned, about this one loss going forward. We'll see how they play again today. I would think they'd get a win and get it all together, but just kind of shocking that to see them kind of have to play catch up. And for a minute there, I did tune in, when they were down, I believe it was, 7-5. And I was like, maybe they, scrape this one out. Yeah. And it just never happened. St. John's tacked on 2 more runs, and that was really it.
I'll tell you one team that did get pitching, and I love this team's lineup. I'm not sure if it's got enough quality pitching depth, but boy, last night was a good start to it. South Carolina winning a game 5-1 over Miami of Ohio. Eli Jones had as good a start as anybody had. What caught your eye from that one?
Well, I was going to mention him too. He was the one pitcher I think you'd mentioned that went 6 innings. He did do 6 innings of work. And there was it was kind of a boring game. I mean, there was no scoring after 2 innings of play. South Carolina had their big 5th inning or 2nd inning. 4 of them came in with a 5-run second, and Miami was just kept off the base paths by the South Carolina staff. They had just 2 walks out of 40 batters faced the entire game. When you do that, it's going to be hard to beat an SEC team with how they can score. And although South Carolina wasn't scoring, that was a grand slam lead. Miami of Ohio had to kind of work their way against the entire way, and they just weren't letting them have it. And give credit to Eli Jones. I would say, other than the 2 Tennessee guys that played, it was some of the best pitching we saw yesterday.
Yeah, I'm going to run through a couple more good pitching performances, either by staffs or individuals. And if you got anything on these games, feel free to chime in. If not, we'll just move on to the ones you had. We split these up. And again, we weren't able to watch all of them. We watched some, and we read the box scores on the rest. And so we're giving you what we got. When 14 teams play at once, that's a little hard to track. But anyway, I think one thing that caught my eye, Georgia beating UNC Asheville 11-2. Wes Johnson who was the pitching coach for the Twins this time 2 years ago, the pitching coach for LSU this time last year, is now the head coach at Georgia. This is a team that's had trouble throwing strikes in recent years, and I think what caught my eye there, Charlie Goldstein, who was really good for them down the stretch last year, goes 4, gives up 1 run, 7 Ks. Colton Smith, 3 innings, 1 run in relief. Jarvis Evans, 2 innings, no earned runs. Charlie Condon had a double with what somebody in the ballpark told me, had a 118 exit velo. And then Slade Alford, who I think is going to play third there, the Mississippi State transfer, gave them 2 home runs. So Georgia wins that one comfortably 11-2. Speaking of great pitching, Alabama, I love the staff. I think Rob Walton's done a good job rebuilding through the portal through a chaotic situation. I'm a little concerned about the offense, and I think maybe you saw that in game 1. Mm-hmm. Alabama only had 6 hits. TJ McCants had 2 of those, stole 2 bases. Tough season for that kid last year. His mother passed away. I think maybe a change of scenery and flipping the calendar will do him good. He had a really nice freshman year at Ole Miss. So Alabama gets Manhattan 4-0. Ben Hess, Hagan Banks, Braylon Myers combined on a 2-hit shutout, 15 strikeouts, just 4 walks. So I think if you're Alabama, you're happy about that. And Missouri pitched it pretty well. Ian Lose, who I was kind of surprised to see working out of the bullpen, gave them 3 scoreless. Carrick Jackson's debut as a head coach. They played Cal Poly out there. That's typically I think a typical West Coast team. They like to bunt and run, build it around pitching, low-scoring games. And then I think the last one I had was Ole Miss and Hawaii. That one went to 13. Ethan Groff had 3 hits, had a home run. Mason Nichols had 4 1/3 scoreless to get the win there as Ole Miss held on while I think we were asleep to get that one. You may not have been asleep, but I was asleep by that point.
Late night game, that one out in Hawaii. So, but that was the good pitching I have too. I think, I don't know if you mentioned it. I don't think you did. A&M against McNeese shut down that team completely. That was all A&M that game. Excuse me if I'm saying this wrong, but Ryan, either Prager or Prager, 5 innings of work, 9 strikeouts, and just 1 hit. Set the tone. Really just kind of set the tone. And that A&M offense, once they get it going, they will be hard to stop this year. By
the way, Prager did not pitch a year ago, so that's a big ad for them because he was a big part of what they did in Omaha a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that, so that's huge for them because this offense, again, one of the biggest pickups in the portal was Braden Montgomery from Stanford. 2-way type of talent, and on offense last night, 2 for 4 night. A&M drew 12 walks against McNeese. Again, they got runners on the base path, and once these guys like Montgomery and Laviolette get going, they just score runs in a hurry, and that was the case. Laviolette had 2 home runs as well last night, I'd like to mention, so he's going to be a threat. I saw D1 was putting him as one of the best just players in college baseball heading into the season, and I agree. So this A&M team, they showed how dangerous they can be heading into this season.
Yeah, I think the other ones, you kind of we divided these in half, and you got the blowout end of the slate for the most part, the pinball machine game. So we've got Auburn, Eastern Kentucky, Mississippi State, Air Force to go. Is that it?
And then Kentucky. And then Kentucky.
Oh yeah, Kentucky
at the end. That one was a little close, but Auburn put up the most runs of any team last night, 17, and a 17-6 win over Eastern Kentucky. Ike Irish, their catcher, had a really good day, 4 for 5, 4 RBIs, and a home run. Chris Stanfield did well with his discipline last night for Auburn too. He had 3 walks and 4 RBIs too. I mean, that's just means you're contributing on offense in all facets of hitting and whatnot. Eastern Kentucky, give them credit. They put pressure on Auburn early. They had 2 home runs in the second, and that kind of cut the Auburn lead to a run. So all of a sudden, everyone probably was like, "Uh-oh, here's one of those close games, like a lot of the ones we got last night." And then it was just really all Auburn from there. They just got on base a whole lot from what I caught from them, and that was the difference. And that is the difference in them getting 13 more runs in that game en route to victory. The other one too, this was a lot closer than that game, but Mississippi State, back and forth through 5 innings of play. Dakota Jordan, who is really going to be one of the head pieces for them this year. He had a great game with a run and a home run. And that was during the the stretch of time in that game when Air Force and Mississippi State just traded the lead, it seemed, every inning through the first 5. But once again, kind of like what LSU did to VMI, Mississippi State had a big 6th inning with a Bryce Chance homer, Connor Hughes-Jack with a triple as well that knocked in a run. That opened up their lead to 6-3. And then the Mississippi State pitching really just kind of shut down Air Force from that point on. And Mississippi State cruised to an 8-4 win there. And Air Force, again, Mississippi State, that's the kind of program where we expect good baseball out of them. They'll be competitive this year. I think Dakota Jordan, again, is the headpiece to that team. I don't know if you agree with that. You got anything more on them? But I think,
well, he's a like a potential first round prospect. So, the other thing you mentioned, going back to Auburn, Ike Irish had 4 hits in that one. By the way, it was a 7-inning game, so both teams saved a little bit of pitching. Stanfield, you mentioned, they've got some older guys. He's one of the Irish, I think, and maybe Cole Messina. I feel like maybe I'm forgetting somebody. Probably going to compete for title of best catcher in the league. Irish was a kid that Auburn probably felt fortunate to get through the draft a couple of years ago. So no real shock to see him having a big day for Auburn in the opener.
Absolutely, yeah. My question about Auburn going forward, and this is a while from now, so a lot of this non-conference play will determine that, but how they play in SEC play really, I think, has been the defining moment for Auburn baseball. They can't really, I feel like they were competitive against the teams like Georgia and Missouri, ones that are, below that level of the elite programs. But once they meet teams like the Tennessees, the LSUs, the Vandies, then they kind of run into trouble. But 17 runs to start the year is a very good way to kind of give everyone a wake-up call to see what you're all about.
Yeah, their pitching will be interesting. I'm interested to see if they throw Gonzalez this weekend, who barely pitched for them last year because of injury. He was obviously one of the big aces of the league in 2022. Getting him back would do a lot to change the trajectory of that season. Let's see. I guess we've hit most of it at this point, haven't we? I think we've hit all the games.
Yeah, and then I guess that leaves Kentucky, USC Upstate. Shout out real quick. Yeah, shout out real quick. That game was in Harley Park in Spartanburg, South Carolina. It's a little bit close to where I'm from, so cool little side tidbit, but kind of weird too. I actually didn't realize until I started watching. That was in the middle of the day. I had nothing else going on that they were playing there. So, but there was a lot of Kentucky fans in that stands. They traveled well to watch them play, and Nick Lopez offensively for them was the key. 3 hits. He kind of got the offense going early from them, and a 4-run inning was the case for them in the second. And USC Upstate just had to play catch up. I'll give Upstate credit though; they had 11 hits that day. They kind of put a lot of base runners on for Kentucky to deal with, and Kentucky really just kind of struggled at times to keep them off the base paths. I mean, they only had 6 strikeouts through their whole staff that pitched that day. But nonetheless, I mean, Kentucky's offense was alive enough to get them the win, and they just seemed to kind of cruise, even though USC Upstate kept it close because of their ability to get on base.
Yeah, I see a lot of last year in this year's Kentucky team already.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of gained the RPI a little bit by playing some of the right mid majors that weren't low in it. Now they're playing some road games here, which will help them a little bit. They do have 4 guys who started, or I guess 5 guys from last year. Like last year, Nick Mingione turned over just about the entire lineup. So seeing Devin Burke's back, he's in that conversation as best catcher in the league. He had a couple of RBIs last night, including their only home run. Petre's back at second. He's one of the better ones in the league from a year ago. Ruben Church back. In fact, I think maybe they got 6 guys who were part of their team that started for them yesterday. The pitching, Travis Smith, who I guess is going to be their ace, gave them 4 and 2-run runs. The bullpen kind of blew it in middle relief. Trey Poozer challenged with the task of keeping the score down, eating some innings, gave them 4 2/3, 5-run runs. But yeah, I see some similarities to Kentucky last year, including a lot of base runners. Looks like they got 13 hits, 4 walks, and stole a couple of bases. So feels like Nick Mingione is sort of taken the blueprint for last year and applied it to this one. And that's a team that I think D1 had ranked third, is a 3 seed in the regional for this year after the Cats hosted. All right, today, Alfred, we have got We're doing this in the morning. We've got a full slate of games again today. We are going to be starting off at noon with Missouri and Cal Poly. Yeah, I think of all the games, we've got LSU switching opponents with Central Arkansas. We've got some teams that are playing some weird series. We've got Tennessee and Oklahoma today will probably be the big one to circle. And other than that, I think everybody's playing who they played the night before. So,
And I
man,
see,
glad we got baseball. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
yeah, no, I see this too. Just a side note, I think Ole Miss plays a doubleheader tonight. I think they have
Okay.
2 games against Hawaii, one at 6 and one at 9. So Ole Miss fans, you get 2 chances to watch your team today. Cool little side tidbit, but that's pretty standard. Other than Tennessee, Oklahoma, and Arlington, pretty much who you played last night, you'll play again today, type deal.
That'll mess with your body clock. Flying to
Mhm.
Hawaii, playing a game that started. What did it start in Eastern time zone last night? Was it 10 or 11?
It might have been 11. It was very, very late.
It was
So,
late.
and even today, God, you got to play a doubleheader
And then a
again today.
doubleheader, right?
I know. So, Ole Miss, I'll give you credit. You're going out of your way for some opening baseball to start the year. But shout out to them. Looking forward to kind of just seeing how they adjust today from what they saw on opening day.
Well, we'll keep an eye on Saturday and Sunday. Not sure if we'll do a Saturday recap or just wait to do a weekend recap Sunday night or Monday morning. But in any case, Alfred, thanks for joining me. Looking forward to working with you this year, and just happy we've got baseball. And predictably, as it happens in Nashville, anytime we get home baseball in this town, it gets cold. So it is freezing today.
It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool too.
Literally.
Just a little bit down the state from you. It's pretty cool too. So
Yeah.
we're in the thick of the beginning. Soon though, we'll get that spring weather, some SEC play, some good old college baseball.
All right. Alfred, thanks for joining me. I'm Chris Lee. This is Southeastern 14 presented by BetOnline. Thanks for watching our SEC baseball recap. Many more to come. Hit that subscribe button. Hit the like button. Have a great weekend. We'll see you soon. It's Southeastern 14 presented by BetOnline.